Hello everyone, this is Professor Hill, and this is a short video for our class, Introduction to Ethics, Philosophy 2306, here at St. Philip's College. This is a summer session. We're doing an online class, and today is Monday, June the 11th, 2018. Yikes. Okay, so this is the start of week number 2 in our course. Now, we just finished week number 1 where we did a lot of things. We were able to get our books, Doing Ethics by Lewis Vaughn, read chapter 1, look at those definitions and key concepts, and then apply them to our case study involving Jenny Lake. Now, we also introduced ourselves and did the welcomes, and that was all interesting and good, too, to find out who we're doing this with. But the Jenny Lake case, I mentioned yesterday in the video that I made yesterday, Sunday, that this was a hard case, and that we wanted to start off with a very difficult one right off the bat, because it forces us to wrestle with some pretty big ethical issues, not least of which is what are our core values and beliefs, and also there are other principles and rules that we're going to be applying. We're going to start into that really in depth next week, because this week we want to lay out two big schools of thought and start to enter into this distinction between these schools of thought, one involving values and beliefs, one involving principles and rules. As we're going to see, they both have big drawbacks. They both have problems, especially when they're pushed into difficult cases, which is why we started with a difficult case. But as you can see with chapter 2, we're going to start right into Subjectivism, which is a school of thought that says, look, there are some moral principles that apply to everybody, all the time, everywhere. They're just the rules, and we need to learn them and apply them. The other school of thought, which is this kind of relativism, says, look, the standards we're going to use to judge the system, the moral theory we're going to use to judge and think and make decisions about difficult ethical cases is very much dependent upon the time and place and the circumstances and the relative factors that are around us. It's not just the mechanical application of a rule. We got to take into account the context. Now, that's two very different ways of looking at things. And they start off, let me give you just two simple examples to exemplify where each one of those things begins. Okay, so here's one, which is the rules and principle people, the objectivist side. They say things like, look, there are rules. One of the rules is you need to be honest. You shouldn't steal stuff from people. If you find something that belongs to somebody else, you should return it. So you're walking across a field and you see a wallet on the ground, you pick it up, and hey, that's like $500 in here, and you're thinking, woohoo, $500. But then you see a driver's license and a business card and a bunch of other ID and a phone number, and you're like, okay, look, even though it cuts against my best interest, I need to do the right thing here and return this wallet to this person. So you call them on the phone and return their wallet to them. That says, look, when you analyze that, you say, well, there's this rule. You should be honest. You should return property to people that own it. Even if it cuts against your best interest, you don't get, hey, maybe you'll get a finder's fee, but that even shouldn't matter. Whether you get a reward or not doesn't matter. You do the right thing because there's this rule. Well, then you get to the other side. And the other side says, no, now, look, hold on a minute. Depending upon the nature of the thing we're talking about in the ethical decision, sometimes, okay, look, there are rules, we'll grant the wallet, but maybe there's other circumstances that are involved. And now let's say you find the wallet, it's got $500 in it, you know who it belongs to, and you think to yourself, I'll throw it in my backpack, I'll take care of it tomorrow. And then what happens is you go out that evening, you're with a bunch of friends, you're having some, lively conversation over a cup of coffee, and one of them says, oh my God, did you hear about, Bob? And they're like, well, what about Bob? Man, he got super angry. He got into a fight with some kind of road rage thing. And this guy had run him off the road and they got into a fight. And he just flew off the handle. And I'm like, oh my God, that's terrible. So, oh yeah, look, the last time I saw Bob he was swearing vengeance on that guy. And he knows him, he knows where he lives. And as soon as he finds his wallet, which is where he's got his money, he was on his way to the store to buy a gun when he lost his wallet. As soon as he gets that money back, he's going to buy a gun and go shoot that guy. And now you're thinking, all right, well, hold on a minute. I'm supposed to return the wallet to this guy. But maybe now's not the best time. Maybe I could just stick it in my backpack for a week or two, let this guy calm down. Maybe suddenly the circumstances have something to say about whether it's the right thing to do, the moral thing to do, to promptly and efficiently return the wallet full of money to that guy who is super angry and looking to buy a gun. Maybe it's the right thing to do to just sit on that for a little bit. I'm just saying. The moral theory from the relativists say you've got to take into account all the factors around you and take into account the circumstances. Maybe there's a reason not to do that, even if there is a rule. But hey, listen, let's back up to Jenny Lake for a minute. That was the case study that was due last night. And as we march now into chapter 2, I want you to think for a minute about that case study. Jenny Lake, like I said from the beginning, it was a terrible case. It was always going to end badly one way or the other. It was just a choice between terrible alternatives. But Jenny Lake made the decision to withhold her own life-saving chemotherapy and radiation treatment in order to allow her pregnancy to develop full term, and she did deliver a healthy baby. Now, lots of people in the class went one way and the other about what was the right thing to do in that situation. But let's think about it now in regards to these two schools of thought that we're getting into now in chapter 2. Because here's the thing. The first school of thought, the objectivist school of thought, says, look, there's some rules that apply to everybody. And let's say that rule is parents take care of their children. The mama bear protects the cubs. We make sacrifices for our kids, up to and including our own lives, to protect our children. And I believe life begins at conception. I think that's a child. I think the mom did the right thing by protecting the child. In fact, even if it cut against her own best interest, the rule is sacrifice and protect your child. Now, if you believe there's that rule and you apply it to the case, there's a problem. I'm going to come back to the problem in a second. Let's switch to the other side. The values and belief side, the relativist side, the circumstances side. Let's look at the surrounding implications. Let's look at what's going on. And again, on this side, the thinking is very different. Let's weigh and balance all the factors. She's got the boyfriend. Maybe the one argument is that she continues her treatment. And it's going to have this terrible effect. But if she lives, she and a boyfriend could, start a family later, have other children. Maybe that's the best thing for her from her point of view. Look, she needs to live. Maybe that you value fighting for your own life. Maybe in our society, we say, look, it's perfectly fine to do what you need to do to protect yourself, to take this medical treatment, even if there are these consequences. Maybe as you weigh and balance all the factors, the family, the child, and because again, you also remember, a lot of people mention this in their essays, which is, you're also talking about a child is going to be born without a mom. Mom's going to be dead right away, which is exactly what happened. She died, 12 days later. And so people were weighing and balancing. It's not just the choice to let the child live. It's also knowing that the child, because of the sacrifice, is going to be born into a at least a family situation at the beginning where mom's not going to be there. Now, some people, they kind of did this weighing and balancing of all the factors, and that's a kind of a relativistic approach. Go back to the other side, because one of the things that the relativists say is, look, they say, you guys, you got these principles and rules. First of all, where'd you get them from? Even if you make a good argument that they come from God, if it's based in your religion, or if they're based in our nature, I'm using my reason to determine this is the nature of the way things are, and these rules, we've kind of discerned them from the nature of human beings. Here's a problem for you in the Jenny Lake case. Who do you apply that rule to? If the rule is mom protects the child, you're thinking, well, I apply it to Jenny. She stops her treatment and the baby lives. Well, listen, you got to remember, people pointed this out. Jenny's 17. It's not even her decision. Mom gets to make the decision. Her mom. And if her mom is applying the rule, protect my child, that's Jenny, not Jenny's baby. So suddenly, the same principle, if you apply it to Jenny, she stops the treatment. If you apply it to the mom, she continues the treatment. So there's both this question about where the rules come from and how do you apply them and who do you apply them to. Now, back to the other side, a lot of times the folks that are weighing and balancing the circumstances are also trying to do this math about the outcomes. They're very concerned about what are the odds if she lives, if she takes the treatment, and what are the odds the baby's born healthy. And look, I got to tell you, those a lot of times are just best guess estimates. Now, it's information, and you want to take it in and weigh and balance it. But human beings are notoriously bad at predicting the future. We're going to see this when we get into consequential thinking and non-consequentialist thinking in chapters 4, 5, and 6. But it begins here with the relativist versus the objectivist. These are the key concepts from chapter 2. I want you to read the chapter and start thinking ahead to our next case study, which is due Wednesday night. And also, one last thing about chapter 2, which is kind of a funny thing. Look at the chapter of the book, okay? This is chapter 2, right? I got the book right here. And you're going to notice something right off the bat, okay? Here's the thing. Chapter 2 is called, ready for this? Subjectivism, relativism, and emotivism. Those three things, okay? But what happens at the beginning of the chapter is he tells you, hey, you know what? This chapter is about 4 things. And you're like, okay. And he says it's about subjectivism and relativism and emotivism, but it's also about objectivism. In fact, it's the very first term he defines on page 1. In fact, even in our little quick review box, he's got these 4 terms: objectivism, cultural relativism, subjective relativism, and emotivism. And I'm going, okay. But then a funny thing happens. You read chapter 2. And when you read chapter 2, you realize he only addresses those 3 things that are named in the heading. Suddenly, objectivism isn't there at all. He doesn't deal with it. He just defines it at the beginning, and that's it. He says it's the view that some moral principles are valid for everybody. In fact, if you go through, there's only one place he mentions it. One sentence. And it's right between cultural relativism and emotivism. Right between those 2 little subheadings. He says, he's talking about this. He's talking about why subjective relativism is bad and wrong. And then he says the crux of the matter is that cultural relativism does a poor job of explaining some important features of our moral experience. And then he throws in this one sentence. He says, a far better explanation of these features is that some form of moral objectivism is true. That's it. One sentence in which he says, we have a winner. This one's true. And again, the whole chapter is him tearing apart the other 3. Now, look. Read the chapter. Look at all 4 and tell me what you think about them. But be aware of this. It turns out that he's not just describing all 4 and like some objective teacher laying them out, defining them, and telling you about their strengths and weaknesses. He's not doing that. He's laying out 3 of the 4 and pounding them and giving you only their weaknesses. And then the fourth one, he just says, that's the winner, it's true. So you got to be aware that the author in this case is not just describing these moral theories, he's selling one, okay? He believes that there's one. And that's going to shape not only this chapter, but the rest of the book. So keep that in the back of your head in terms of what you think about all four. Because believe me, we're going to do it without him. We're going to talk about objectivism. And we're going to look at the strengths because it's got some interesting things. It's got some powerful arguments for it. But we're also going to look at some of the weaknesses, which he fails to do. That's a problem with the textbook. But look, that's plenty for right now. I'm going through right now, like I said, it's Monday the 11th. I'm going through the assignments from last night. Read chapter 2. Start thinking about Wednesday night. It's, hey, the day after tomorrow. So get to it. And again, if you've had any questions at all, let me know. Give me a ring. Contact me through the campus website. Look forward to helping you out. Take care. Bye-bye.